Thank you for tuning in to the Golden State Media Concepts football podcast, where we discuss the latest news, rumors, and games of the NFL and college football. As always, I'm Jeremiah.
And I'm Anthony.
And we're here for episode 167, and I believe it is the first episode of February. Yes, January just came and went, and 2017 is just rolling in. But, yeah, it's Super Bowl week, Anthony. This is actually the first episode for you of the week during, as we begin to hype up the game.
Yep.
But we actually have a lot to talk about. We're actually going to talk about your boy, Gronk, but we're going to wait till the end of the show for that. You're going to see why he's in the news. Well, first off, we got to talk about the Oakland Raiders. And I did touch on the Raiders' relocation to Las Vegas yesterday. That, the huge investor, Edelson, backed out. And now apparently a huge investor who I mentioned yesterday is also backing out. That is Goldman Sachs, the investment bank. They withdrew the financial support of the project, the stadium project for the Las Vegas Raiders. And as of now, it just looks like maybe the Oakland Raiders may not or may still do it, relocate to Las Vegas. But I think they're still going to relocate. It's just going to take a little bit more time because they can't get a stadium in Oakland. San Diego reached out to the Raiders yesterday, but I just don't see that happening if they can even keep the Chargers there for 2+ decades without even trying to get a stadium deal done. But with Sheldon Edelson, who is a billionaire casino mogul in Las Vegas, he backed out the deal. And Goldman Sachs, two really big investors that put a lot of money, or were going to put a lot of money in this $1.9 billion project for a stadium. It looks like it has come to a roadblock, but the Raiders still file the paperwork, and the owners still have to vote. But all it is right now is just getting money for the stadium. That's all it is.
Right. So here's the thing with the Raiders, right? Mark Davis, he's the owner of the Oakland Raiders. He can do what his father did. Like, he can just follow in his daddy's footsteps and basically just decide, oh, you don't think we're going to go to Las Vegas still? Oh, no, we're still going to go to Las Vegas. I don't care what you say. Basically do the whole Rage Against the Machine line, bleep you, I won't do what you tell me kind of thing, because that's kind of what Al did. Al did that with Los Angeles. They basically, tactically, but when he was the commissioner of the NFL, was like, yeah, you're not going to Los Angeles. So he's like, no, I'm going to Los Angeles. You're not going to Los Angeles. Okay, now watch me go to Los Angeles. And then he went to Los Angeles. Mark Davis may not have that kind of, rebellion streak that Al did, because honestly, no one probably had the rebellion streak that Al did. But it's going to be interesting now, right? Because before it looked like the Chargers were going from San Diego to Los Angeles and the Raiders were going from Oakland to Las Vegas. That looked kind of like a certainty. Now with Adelson gone, now with Goldman Sachs gone, with basically a lot of the money that was going to be put up for this whole thing, because that was the thing that made this a little bit different and unique, right? It wasn't the city of Las Vegas or the state of Nevada. Like, they weren't going to pay the whole bill. Like, that's not how it was going to go. Now with these people out, you're not going to go back to, Las Vegas and be like, hey, remember how we talked about how you weren't going to pay for this stuff? We changed our mind. Maybe you want to pay for it? Like, they're not going to do that. That part's kind of out the door. That's not going to happen. So now at this point, what do you do, right? Like, is it the point where you just stay in Oakland? Kind of how, like, the Oakland A's have a thing where it's basically they keep signing these, like, 1 to 2 year leases kind of thing, to where it's just you stay in the Coliseum, but it's not going to last. Because at this point, it doesn't look like they're going to go to Vegas. I understand Mark still put in the paperwork, and that's fine, and, stubbornness will get you everywhere kind of thing, but at the same time, it doesn't look like it's actually going to happen in Vegas, because if you don't have the money to put this up for, why would the owners actually approve it? Unless you can basically find a way to find the owner of the Aria Hotel in Vegas or something like that. Like, unless you find somebody else that can go and pony up the money for these things, if you don't have the money to do it, that's not going to work. This whole San Diego reaching out for him seems like a nice thing or whatever, but honestly, if San Diego's going to reach out for a team, just have the owners vote again and just basically tell the Chargers, no, you stay in San Diego. You go back. Raiders, you go to Los Angeles. We're going to make this the 80s. The Raiders and Rams are going to play in Los Angeles, and the Chargers are going to play in San Diego. All right, cool. Everyone, all right, break. And then you just kind of go from there, right? Because the Raiders are better in Los Angeles than the Chargers are, and the Chargers, like, just stay in San Diego where everyone's not happy about it, but they're happier than if they would have gone to Los Angeles. It seems to make a little bit of sense to do it that way. Meanwhile, he got Mark Davis out there who's just stubborn as ever and just like, nope, we're going to go to Vegas, and I'm actually really intrigued to see what happens with that.
Yeah, and I am too, and I do think the fact that San Diego reached out to the Raiders is kind of ironic in a way that they kind of drew out the Chargers out of town because they couldn't get a stadium deal done. And I understand why they couldn't get it done.
Well, yeah, they couldn't get it.
They wanted a lot of public funds for that.
Yeah, and the San Diego's basically told them to go to hell. Yeah, they're not. Yeah,
and I get that, but I do think that the Raiders to San Diego, it's not realistic. I think it's a long shot, and the fact that there's already if the Raiders do go to San Diego, which just hypothetically does happen. I don't know if the NFL wants like 3 teams in Southern California, even though the plan was to keep the Chargers in San Diego and have 2 teams moved to LA, but I don't know if the NFL wants 3 teams in Southern California.
I mean, they had that in the 80s.
I know they did, but I don't know if they want it like now.
But then to be fair, by mid-90s, both of those LA teams are also gone.
Yeah.
So it was 3 and then it became 1 kind of thing, but I don't know, man. Like, I think if Al was still alive, like, let's, say this was Al Davis's team and Al Davis was calling like 70 years old. Right? Let's say he was like Kraft's age, right? Like Bob Kraft's age. Let's say he was like 70, 75. Not the Crypt Keeper looking dude he was back in like 2007, right? Like, say he was like an older owner, but not like, pushing daisies kind of dude, right? Like, let's say he was like, old enough to still be able to do stuff. Al Davis would just be putting pressure on, like, we're going to Vegas. I don't care. I'll pay for it myself. We're going to Vegas. I'm building this myself. I'm going to go build, the stadium. I'm going to bring wood. I'm going to bring lumber. All these things is going to work. Like, he would just be stubborn about this, right? And I guess Mark is doing that too. And there's part of me that just loves the defiant and the anarchists in sports that just want to see the Raiders go to Vegas without the approval of the NFL just to see what that looks like, right? Now, Mark doesn't have the funds that Al did, and Mark doesn't have the, stones that Al Davis did. But this whole thing with the Vegas Raiders or whatever, like, I still would like to see that to happen because I think the best team that could go to Las Vegas is the Raiders, history and all. It's just now that these guys are out, like, I don't know how you balance that. I don't know how you go back from it. Because, like, if you go back to Oakland, the fans will welcome you back. Right? It's not like the fans are going to go back to Oakland and they're going to boo you. No, they're going to welcome you back if you go back. It's not going to be a weird transition for that. I think the fans in Oakland understand that, enjoy it while it's there kind of thing, right? Like the Chargers were at least getting fans to show up a little bit in San Diego for the last year, and you knew that was the last season for them, and they didn't have a history like what Oakland does. Oakland has 2 Super Bowls with the Raiders. They won in Los Angeles, but they have 2 Super Bowls in Oakland for the Raiders. They have legit history, and the Raider fans also are a lot of places. Like, they can go back and still root for the team and be fine, be it for a year or 2 or whatever, until they can figure this Vegas thing out again.
Well, you did say that the Chargers don't really have a lot of history in San Diego, like Super Bowl history. I mean, so they really don't. I think they've been to 2 or 1.
I know they went to 1994 when they lost to the 49ers, and they might have gone again. But
yeah, I think that was the only one they've been to. But San Diego was the franchise there for about 55 years.
Right. No, you have history. You have Dan Fouts. You have Philip Rivers. You have LaDainian Tomlinson. You have even Merriman for a little bit when he's Defensive Player of the Year. Like, you have legit history on that team.
It just they didn't have a lot of Super Bowl success.
Right.
And whenever they did have a lot of success throughout the year, throughout the Marty Schottenheimer years, they were one of the best teams in the AFC.
Right.
But they just couldn't get past that first round or second round. They just couldn't make that big jump. So I think that was one of the teams that really had a lot of lost potential, because I feel like they should have went. I feel like that team, the Marty Schottenheimer days in the mid 2000s, I feel like they could have went to 3 Super Bowls.
Oh no, that team was super loaded. Yeah.
I just felt like that was a team that had a lost potential. Like,
right.
Like, they had talent to win to at least go to multiple Super Bowls. they can at least been the new Buffalo Bills. At least like go to a Super Bowl. But they couldn't even do that. I just feel like that was
whether it goes good or bad. At least go there and see what happens.
Exactly. So I just feel like that's one of the lost, potential like great teams there in San Diego. But they just couldn't make that leap. And
I do want to see with the Raiders. Like I said, Mark basically said, like, no, we're still going to file this paperwork. We're still going to try and make this a thing. Like, I do want to see what the, thing is, basically, if the owners come back and say, like, yeah, but who's going to pay for this? And when Mark's just like, I don't know, we'll figure it out. They're like, no, you're staying in Oakland. Like, I want to see what the plan is after that. If they try Vegas again, if they try San Diego, if they basically say, like, okay, we're going to bring a third team to L.A., or, like, if you can't do
a third team.
well, the thing is, like I'm saying, because you can't. If Vegas isn't going to be a thing, right? If the people in Vegas basically, if two people that were like high rollers in Vegas basically said, yeah, never mind, we're not doing this, and I don't think they did this off of anything other than A, they're not going to make their money back, and B, there was probably some shadiness in this whole thing. I don't think it was like an ethical thing. I think it was just a, it didn't make money, didn't make sense kind of thing. And also maybe one of them got betrayed because you saw once one person went out, the other person went out. So it was either like, okay, this is my buddy, I'm going to, ride for my buddy on this. Or, oh, okay, cool. So you screwed him over. That means you're going to screw me over next. Yeah, never mind. I'm done with this. And if you can't get anybody else in Vegas to basically buy into that, then A, maybe you don't go to Las Vegas. And if you don't go to Las Vegas, where does that leave you? Are you going to go to St. Louis? No. Are you going to go to San Diego? Probably not. Are you going to Los Angeles? I don't think so. So where else does that leave Oakland to go? Like, or the Raiders, I guess I should say. Where else does that leave the Raiders to go? Like, they're not going, like, honestly, like, one other place. LA was always that carrot that was being dangled over the fans, basically saying, like, if you don't get a stadium, you may become the Los Angeles, whatever your team's name is. Well, that's kind of gone now. Like, what other city, basically, if it's not Vegas, has the threat of a team coming there, right? Like, Sacramento, we live in Sacramento. It's not going to be in Sacramento. We don't have the infrastructure / funding, basically, to keep an NFL team. We got a basketball team, and we have, like, smaller sports like that, but we don't have anything that will, like, support the stuff the NFL has. So I want to see what happens with the Raiders after this whole thing. Like, if they actually can't figure anything else out, like, if they're basically just like the dude that's just kind of standing at the end, just like, well, okay, so I guess we're staying, and then they just got to figure it out for another 5-10 years while nothing happens.
Well, you did talk about like St. Louis. Do you think St. Louis could?
St. Louis, no. St. Louis.
Do you think they'll ever get a football team again?
Not anytime soon. Maybe in time or whatever else like that. But you got to remember, St. Louis doesn't even have a basketball team.
No, they only have and honestly, St. Louis has historically been a baseball town anyway.
Sure,
they have like a really strong following of the Cardinals there, and when they did have some success. In football, when the Rams were there, they went to 2 straight Super Bowls. They lost one to Brady, a very young Tom Brady.
Right.
That is when they had that greatest show on turf. But
right. But that's I don't think they go back to St. Louis. I don't think any team goes to St. Louis, at least not for 10, 20 years.
I think San Antonio will get a team before St. Louis if that were to happen. Because
that's right. The Raiders was one of them. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the Raiders talked about going to San Antonio for a little bit.
Yeah. That's true.
I kind of think Vegas is a better city for them because it just fits the Raiders' culture, the historic culture there. And when the Raiders filed their relocation papers. They didn't even include Sheldon Adelson in it at all. And the Raiders told the NFL that they had assurance from Goldman Sachs, that they will, have financial support from the firm if Adelson wasn't even part of the picture. And it looks like they only have both of them. So it
sounds like the thing, like you ever do the thing where you're, you have like a permission slip or whatever, and it's just like, can you sign this? What is it? I don't know. Like mom told you to sign it. Oh, your mom saw it? Yeah. You just lie about it because it's like one of those things where it's like you got in trouble or you failed a test or whatever, and you have to have your parents sign it, but you don't want to tell your parents that you failed a test or that you missed class, something like that. So it's just like, what is this? Oh, just the field trip. Mom didn't want to sign it, but she told you to sign it. That you try and trick your parents in order to doing this thing, but you understand that you're not doing everything on the up and up. That kind of sounds like what was over here. It's like, Oh, yeah, don't worry about that. Adelson's not on there. Oh, yeah. Goldman Sachs? Yeah, they're fine.
It's a really good analogy. So pretty much in this, Mark Davis is the kid. And then Goldman Sachs and Adelson are the parents.
Mark Davis has that kid haircut.
He has the bowl cut, man.
Hey, that man. I don't know if that's bold. I don't know what that is.
I don't. It's something. It's very unique. A lot of people don't have it.
Yes.
All right. Well, on that note, we're going to take our first break, and we're going to get to some news regarding J.J. Watt. Yes, the Houston, Texas defensive end is in the news recently. We will discuss how when we come back to the Going to Meet Concepts football podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the Going to Meet Concepts football podcast, and it looks like the Houston Texans can get J.J. Watt back next year. They look like they're going to get him back. J.J. Watt said he is officially done rehabbing his back, and he has been cleared for football activities. And Watt has undergone 3 surgeries in the last year, including 2 in his back. He had one in late July on a herniated disc. Missed all training camp, all the preseason. He was back for the season opener. He played for the first 3 games, but re-injured his back in late September and needed a second injury. So he was out after that second injury on his back. And the Texans, they were still a pretty good defense. This defense was one of the reasons why this team was in the playoffs and why they won that division. Because, we got to think about the quarterbacks that they have in this division. They're not great, but, they do have Andrew Luck, who is probably the best quarterback in that division. They got Marcus Mariota, who I think is going to be a breakout player, if he wasn't already. I think he's going to be great next year. Blake Bortles, he was supposed to be good. I still think that he can, but who knows what the Jaguars are going to do with the young quarterback there. And we all know about the Texans quarterback situation. I actually think they can. I think they should get Tony Romo, but who knows? We'll see how that happens. But with J.J. Watt coming back to this defense is going to be a lot scary. Because remember, we finally saw what Jadeveon Clowney looks like when he's fully healthy.
Right.
Weedy Merciless had a great year. And don't forget, Jonathan Joseph wasn't even. He was hurt this year too. So the Texans defense played with 2 of their best players, and they still were pretty good. For the season, the Texans ranked first in overall not points allowed, but yards allowed, and they were the second best team of allowing the pass, and they were 12th against the run, and then they allowed 20.5 points, which made them 11th in the league. But this defense is the reason why the Texans were in the playoffs. I truly think so. If this defense didn't play the way they did, I don't even know if they would have won 9 games.
No, probably not. But the one thing with Watt, what did you just say with him with his injuries? It's in his back, right? And
he had 2 back injuries.
Yeah, so the back thing, it's different than if you hurt your wrist or if you hurt your shoulder or something like that. Football players are kind of robots and, superhuman in that aspect to a degree, but the back is also the back, man. That stuff takes a minute for you to feel 100%, right? And the herniated disc and this and all the stuff that's been happening with him, it's not just a one-time thing. He's had this multiple times now as far as back problems go, and you're coming in basically, like you said, Whitney Merciless, Jadeveon Clowney, they've had people step up while he was away, and you would think like, oh, okay, cool, now he's back, this is going to be great. If J.J. Watt can be what he was, because, you know, the back injury could hurt, basically, he could, you know, be out there but not be 100%. That's going to take a minute to be back to 100%. He could come back next year, get like 8-10 sacks, and not be the same dude. Then all of a sudden we're yelling at J.J. Watt again. Right? Like, oh, why isn't he the same guy? Because his back hurts. Because, I mean, even in some sport like basketball, like we saw with Dwight Howard, it took him like a year or two just to kind of get back to not, you know, complaining that your back hurts all the time because you had it worked on. Like, it's just a completely, like, that and your foot are like two totally different injuries that totally affect how you play the game, right? Because obviously you have to walk, and obviously your back matters a lot when you're walking, your posture, everything else like that. It kind of determines how you're going to be going and playing and stuff like that. And if you're always kind of like grabbing your back, that's not exactly going to be a good, thing going forward. But as far as this goes with J.J. Watt, it's something that, you know, it's at least positive for them. It's like, oh, okay, cool, we get our guy back. Just hopefully he's the dude that he was before all these back problems.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we're kind of underplaying here is the back surgeries. And it is J.J. Watt, and J.J. Watt has proved that he is a freak athlete, but back injury is nothing to play with, especially with the herniated disc as well. And, you know, even if J.J. Watt isn't 100%, I think the Texans should honestly take their time with Watt. They shouldn't rush him. I kind of thought they kind of rushed him a little bit this past year, and, you know, we saw what happened.
Right.
But I do think the fact that Clowney, he has 6 sacks in a very healthy year. I do think the fact that he is going to get better, and that's kind of scary. I do think that they feel better with Jadeveon Clowney. Whitney Merciless, who led the team in sacks, I believe, was 7.5. The fact that, you know, this defense played well without, you know, their big guy, they're pretty much their best playmaker on the team.
Right.
I do think that bodes well for them, and it makes them a little bit more, they're not as, you know, concerned, so to speak. But, you know, J.J. Watt did say that, you know, he is trained again, you know, how he regularly does for the offseason. He's going to add a little more core workouts to protect his back in the future, which is, I think, is really great. I think he should do that. But I do think that the Texans need to take the time, you know, to not rush him back.
Right. And
this defense is hella scary. But other than J.J. Watt, we got to talk about your boy.
Mm-hmm.
Got to talk about your boy.
Roberto Gronkowski.
Rob Gronkowski. And this is a story that came out yesterday, and I thought it was hilarious. For some reason, and I don't know why, Anthony, but it seems like Gronk is obsessed.
You know why.
With the number 69.
You know why.
I don't know why.
You know why.
But he's obsessed with the number 69. I don't know why. What's the infatuation? I don't know.
Here's the thing. This is a football show, but like there was news the other day that came out with Steven Jackson, the former, not running back for the Falcons and all that and for the Rams, but Steven Jackson, the basketball player, basically on a podcast said that he would, before games, smoke weed. And he said he would,
I did see that, yeah.
And he said he would do that before games. I bring that up to say both of these stories, no surprise. Like, no surprise. Like, totally understandable. Maybe not understandable, but like totally, like you told me, it's like, oh yeah, 100%. Like, I would be surprised if Steven Jackson didn't smoke weed before a game. Also, Rob Gronkowski, I mean, the dude is a caveman who somehow was trained early on to play football. Like, he is just a giant Loch Ness monster / polar bear / Yeti / whatever you want to say, that somewhere around the line at like 12, 13 years old, the dad said, hey, here's a football, run with this. And he might be the best tight end we've ever seen. You know, this might not last for a long period of time because he keeps getting injured, right? Like the Patriots made it to the Super Bowl again without a healthy Gronk. You know, they lost in 2011 when he was like injured and had to come back and he wasn't 100%. Like, this isn't the first time they've had to play without him in the playoffs. But, you know,
We got what
They had 69 points, and they was like, "Oh, you're going to get 70." No, it's cool. I'm just going to keep this here. Like, it's the most Gronkowski thing I've ever heard of in my life, and we've also talked about the sex boat that he had.
We always have to bring that up every time.
I'm just saying, man.
We always have to bring. We let that happen. Why? We let that happen.
I know. I'm fine. We let that happen. I'm just saying you let the man basically have a sex boat, and you let it, and nothing bad happened. So thank the Lord for that. But you let that happen. You know, this is Gronkowski. This is what he does.
Okay. Okay. I think Anthony kind of told you what the story was, but let me put some more context in here.
Sure.
Well, in high school, Rob Gronkowski.
Yes.
I think his appreciation for the number 69 started way before this, but
that started when he was like 13, probably. Let's be honest.
Probably in the middle school years, but his high school basketball team has 69 points, and he this is for some reason it's hilarious. On purpose, he missed a free throw attempt in order to keep his team score at 69. And I'm not surprised right now. I'm just not.
Here's the thing. I want follow-ups to this question. I want to see if he did the thing where he just missed the shot, or it's that thing like if you've seen like at the end of a basketball game where they have to miss the final free throw and they just kind of like throw it really weirdly, and it's like obviously that you're going to miss the shot, like it's a really obvious looking shot. Like I want to see which one actually happened with him.
Okay, and then there's a quote from I think his former basketball coach at Buffalo's Williamsville North High School, and this is what he said. This is what his coach Chuck Swiderski said about that time.
Mm-hmm.
Quote, so we're playing a home game and we have 6 to 8 points. Now, it's not a blowout, but it's not particularly a close game either. So Gronkowski, gets fouled and goes to the free throw line. He hits the first one to get us to 69, and the place goes nuts because he's playing into it. On his next free throw, he purposely chucks the ball off the backboard and misses, so the score would stay at 69, and then runs back on defense, pointing at the scoreboard. I don't know. He's just pointing at the scoreboard. I don't know, but his obsession for the number 69 still continues to this day. He does have 69 total touchdowns, and during a joint practice in 2014 with the Chargers.
He's going to retire from the NFL.
In a joint practice with the Chargers, the Patriots don't have practice numbers on their practice jerseys for some reason, but somehow Gronk just taped up the number 69 on the back, and it's just Gronk being Gronk. And he does have 69 career touchdowns. It's a milestone that he was certainly looking forward to. So I think Gronk's just going to retire with the 69 touchdowns.
He's the best. Like he's just a dope. Like it's not even like he's like an evil, but he's just a dope. He's just like a dopey dude.
Oh yeah, he is, and I just laughed that he was just pointing at the scoreboard. Just when he goes back in defense, just on transition. All right, well, we're gonna take a last break here, and we're going to discuss National Signing Day when we get back to Going to Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Well, today is known as National Signing Day, and this is a point when a bunch of young men's lives will change because they are making the transition from playing high school football to college football. And it's not just in football, but it's a lot of collegiate sports. But since this is the football show, and NCAA is a monster in itself, we got to talk about it. And the 2017 football class rankings, and it's no surprise that Alabama has one of the top again. Then it goes from Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, and LSU. So there's no surprise that all these programs, in the SEC and in the Big Ten are, part of the huge, classes that the top recruiting classes,
right,
so to speak. And, National Signing Day is probably going to, I think it literally started about an hour ago, a little bit before we went on the air.
Right.
But, some of the big signings, have gone to, Alabama. I know Alabama has a running back from Antioch, Najee Harris, who is a beast, who was a beast in high school, and he's from Antioch, which is kind of like near where we're at. I think it's about like an hour and a half away from where we do our show, and Antioch is in the Bay Area. So I do know that they do have Najee Harris, and I'm actually excited for him to watch him play. But yeah, what's your overall thought about the National Signing Day and the recruiting classes this year, Anthony?
I mean, look, here's the thing: National Signing Day is a cool enough thing because you get the people who are in high school like an opportunity to feel important and everything else like that, because you get on TV and you say, "Oh, I'm going to blah blah blah, Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, wherever you're going to go." So it's a cool thing there, because after that, honestly, you might not ever be on TV again for anything, right? Like that could be the last time that you're ever, doing something that's got a national spotlight on you. You look at the teams, like you said, that were basically the top 5, right? Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, FSU, LSU, Georgia. All those pretty much make sense because Alabama, it's Alabama, right? Nick Saban's kind of the god of all the stuff like that. He's kind of the one that kind of runs the place. Ohio State, you got Urban Meyer, probably the second best coach of all time. Georgia took Kirby Smart from Alabama, so he's probably got the whole hey, I learned how to do all these things from Nick Saban. Follow me, I know what to do. Michigan's got Harbaugh, who's a really great recruiter, also a madman. And LSU has, historically, over the last 10, 12 years, been a really good school as far as recruiting, and you had the kind of success at the end of the year. So now you keep the head coach at Ed Orgeron. So now it's looking like that team might be a little bit good this year. Also, Florida State, Oklahoma, USC, Clemson, and Stanford, all those teams make sense because either you have a national championship somewhat recently, like Clemson and FSU, or you got a historical program like USC and Oklahoma, who basically are always going to get the players that they want. USC looks like they're on the rise because Sam Darnold came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden he's going to be the quarterback for the next year or two. You have all these things that are happening here. Georgia's probably the one that's kind of the most surprising, but that's the Kirby Smart factor with that. The one thing I was saying with this Alabama thing, right, because you have Nick Saban, who's basically the best college coach of all time. Like, I understand he just lost to Dabo Swinney. That's fine. Also, 5 national championships. Like, the dude's kind of a beast, kind of a big deal, really, really, really good at his job. But they had this piece, basically, on Nick Saban the other day, right? And all it basically was basically recapping these recruits coming to his house, right? Because it's not just him going to their house and basically saying, oh, Mr. and Mrs. da-da-da, I want to have your son come play for my football program and da-da-da, forget about the fact that he's the best coach of all time. Forget about the fact that he has dozens, literally, of players in the NFL. Forget about the fact that they're always going to be, if not a championship contender, in the top 5 to 10 every single year, at least in the hunt. He has them come to his house, and they had this profile that basically said, he had these houses, he had some Benzes over there. Basically, he was just showing off everything at his house that he had, basically showing the security guards he had at his house, the cars he had at his house, the jewelry that he had at his house, just everything, man. Just all these things that he had, all this stuff just to basically impress the students, right? It was just to basically show them, yeah, all this stuff. Look at how cool it can be to play here. Now, that kind of flies in the face of the fact that once you actually play for him, not as happy, not as joyful, not as cool. Then all of a sudden he gets mad and start yelling at you for everything because he wants to win another national title, and that takes persistence, and that takes preparation, and that takes kind of grinding on the people up until the point where they finally start winning. But it makes all the sense in the world that Alabama's number 1, Ohio State's number 2, FSU's in the top 10. All those stuff makes total sense. You got some other schools that are kind of in the peripheral there, kind of, you got like the University of Miami, Penn State, Tennessee, Texas A&M. You got those kind of programs that are right on the edge of everything else like that. All of that makes sense because there's no honestly like surprised, like, oh my god, like how did that team make it? I guess Maryland maybe. Like Maryland doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. So the 20th,
the 20th team.
Yeah, that just seems like a weird thing. But like, you know, outside of that, everything else is just one of those things. It's like, oh yeah, national power, national power, national power, national power. You know, and even some of the new schools, you know, like Miami's starting to climb back up, but they got Mark Richt from Georgia. He's, you know, been playing in the SEC, coaching in the SEC for a really long time now, so he knows how to get the recruits as well. Mixing the fact that now you know, getting Miami players, also learning how to recruit in the South. Yeah, like I just like this day is kind of like I enjoyed for the players, right? Like the people that are going to play, because it gets them at the very least one moment where they can feel good and they can feel important about what they're doing, even if that's never going to happen again for them.
Yeah, that's the thing I enjoy about National Signing Day. It gives kids a chance to be in the spotlight and be awarded for their hard work, but I think they know that the hard work doesn't stop there. I think National Signing Day and the NFL Draft are the two most important dates for football players, you know, because when you're transitioning to play in college, you know, you're overwhelmed by all the offers and, you know, all these people giving you so much attention at such a young age, and then when you're about to go to the NFL, you're getting overwhelmed by a lot of more national spotlight that you're not technically used to. But the thing that has spoke out to me about National Signing Day is there's a lot of kids from Texas, you know, that didn't stay in Texas. Like, for example, Nebraska has 3 commitments from Texas. A lot of schools, a lot of players from Texas went out of state, because I know, you know, some of them. I know one of them from Grand Prairie, Texas. Jeffrey Acuna went to Ohio State, and it just speaks to me that how come Texas is losing so much talent? Like the Texas programs, there's so much there. Why are they losing so much talent to all these schools out of state?
Well, it's the thing. Like I was talking to Ben, I was talking to Ben about this with the sports show, right? Like, it amazes me that someone like Alabama, like Nick Saban, like Urban Meyer, and Ohio State can get these people to come in who are some of the top players in the nation who have literally no guarantee that they're going to start. Like, you could be the second best running back in the nation. Cool, awesome. The guy that we have, he's really good too, and I want him to start. Like, you're going there blind, basically. Like, you're probably going to start if you're a top 10, you know, recruit, you know, in the nation or whatever else like that, if you're going to any other school. But at Alabama, not really. Like, you might not. So you talk about why all these people in Texas going to other places, because they get a chance to start, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And, you know, there's so many programs in Texas, and I think USC and UCLA also have recruits from Texas as well.
Right.
So
now, Texas, California, Florida, those 3 states tend to get the most. That, you know, like you talk about all the people that are in Texas, all the schools in Texas, all the schools that are in Florida, Miami, FSU, Florida Atlantic, that has Lane Kiffin with the worst video I've ever seen in my life trying to hype people up.
Oh yeah.
Woo, so bad.
He looked very enthusiastic.
Woo, so bad. Also a little pudgy. And you also have like Charlie Strong over there. You know, you have all these things where like all these other schools are basically, you know, grabbing all these really good coaches. You got Butch Davis over there as well. And you basically have all of these schools in Florida, all these schools in Texas, all these schools in California also that are all just doing really well. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see, like you talk about, like everybody's going everywhere else. But that's the thing. Like when you have all that talent, it gets dispersed because, well, I want to start. Okay, well, I want to start too. Cool. So I'm going to go over here where I'm going to start at this maybe smaller school. But if I can shine at the smaller school, maybe I get more coverage than if I'm the third string running back at Alabama.
Yeah, and I did talk about this guy earlier, but you know, Najee Harris from Antioch High School, which is in California, which is kind of like not far where we're at. I think it's about like, well, how long?
He said an hour and a half or so, yeah.
Is it about an hour and a half?
Give or take, yeah.
Yeah, it's in the Bay Area. I think is it in the East Bay?
I honestly don't know.
Okay,
I don't know.
I'm not from Northern California, so I can't really give you an exact location where it's at in the Bay Area. But it is about an hour and a half. Najee Harris, he is a 5-star recruit, 6'3", 226 pounds, so he keeps the trend of the big running backs at Alabama.
Right.
And, you know, we always have the question, where did he find these guys? I don't know. But
everywhere.
But this kid in high school was amazing, and I just can't wait to see how he does in Alabama. But yeah, that is the thing. I just, a lot of young kids really want to start.
Right, and I get that.
Yeah, I do. But that concludes the show. We're going to be back tomorrow to discuss anything that drops in the world of football in the next 24 hours. But, yeah, I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in. And I think we're about, 4 or 5 days away from the Super Bowl?
Well, yeah, basically. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 days, yeah.
All right, we're 4 days away, people. And, of course, we will preview the Super Bowl on Friday. But as of tomorrow, we're going to discuss any news that breaks over the next 24 hours. But I'd like to thank you guys for tuning into the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. As always, I'm Jeremiah.
Hey, I'm Anthony.
And I'd like to thank you guys for tuning in. Have a good day and have a pleasant tomorrow.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.